I still remember the exact moment when my wife flinched away from me like I was covered in acid. It was a Tuesday evening in October, and the smell of someone else's cologne lingered on her neck when I leaned in to kiss her hello. That's when Melissa said those words that would change everything. "Don't touch me, Ryan." Her voice was cold, distant, like she was talking to a stranger who had invaded her personal space on a crowded train, not her husband of 7 years. The cologne wasn't mine. I know because I don't wear cologne, never have. Allergies. I pulled back, something inside me breaking quietly as I watched her turn away, her shoulders tense beneath her silk blouse, the emerald green one I'd bought her for her birthday last year. She'd been distant for weeks, but this was different. This was deliberate. This was a line being drawn. "I'm just tired," she mumbled, not quite meeting my eyes. "Work has been crazy. The Henderson account is killing me." I nodded, stepping back, giving her the space she suddenly seemed to need so desperately. "Sure," I said. "I understand." But I didn't understand. Not really. Not yet. That night, I lay awake beside her, listening to her breathing. It wasn't the deep, rhythmic sound I'd grown accustomed to over our years together. It was shallow, controlled, the breathing of someone pretending to be asleep. Her phone buzzed once on her nightstand, then again. She didn't move, but I saw her eyelids flutter in the dim light filtering through our bedroom curtains. I didn't reach for her phone. I didn't need to. Not yet. But I knew. You know how people talk about their gut feeling? That primal instinct that alerts you to danger before your conscious mind can process it? Mine was screaming at me, a silent alarm blaring through my entire body. But I've never been one for dramatic confrontations or explosive outbursts. That's not how I process things. So I watched, and I waited. The next morning, Melissa was up early, which was unusual for her. Normally, I'm the one who makes coffee, who starts the day while she burrows deeper under the covers, groaning about needing just 5 more minutes. But that day, she was already dressed in her running clothes when I opened my eyes. "Going for a run," she said, tying her shoelaces with unusual focus. "Might be a long one. Don't wait on breakfast." It was 5:30 a.m. In 7 years of marriage, I had never known Melissa to voluntarily wake up before 7 unless the house was on fire. "Okay," I said, my voice still rough with sleep. "Have a good run." She didn't kiss me goodbye. She didn't even look at me. After the front door closed, I lay there for exactly 3 minutes before sliding out of bed. I moved to the window and watched as she got into her car, not running shoes, but heels clicking on the pavement. She wasn't going for a run. She was meeting someone. That's when I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront her in a tear-filled rage. I wasn't going to throw accusations around or demand explanations. I was going to know for sure before I said a word. I showered quickly, dressed in jeans and a dark blue sweater, and followed her. Not in my car. She would have recognized it immediately. I called an Uber and asked the driver to follow the silver Audi about a quarter-mile ahead of us. "Everything okay, man?" The driver, a guy named Kevin with a thick mustache and kind eyes, asked me. "Just need to confirm something," I replied, keeping my eyes fixed on Melissa's car as it turned onto the highway. Kevin gave me a knowing look in the rearview mirror. "Been there," he said quietly. "Hope you're wrong." "Me too," I whispered, though I knew I wasn't. Melissa drove for 30 minutes, eventually pulling into the parking lot of the Lakeside Hotel, a place known for its discretion and its expensive rooms with views of the water. Not the kind of place you go for a business meeting at 6 a.m. I asked Kevin to drop me off across the street. "Want me to wait?" he asked. I shook my head. "I might be a while." Kevin hesitated, then scribbled something on a receipt and handed it to me. "My number. Call if you need a ride back or someone to talk to." I tucked the paper into my pocket and thanked him. It was a small kindness, but it nearly broke me. Funny how that works. You can hold yourself together through the big things, but it's often the small moments of unexpected humanity that threaten to unravel you. I watched Melissa enter the hotel, her stride purposeful, confident. She didn't look around nervously or check to see if anyone was watching. This wasn't her first time doing this. I didn't try to follow her inside immediately. That would have been too risky. Hotels have security cameras and staff trained to spot people who don't belong. Instead, I walked around the building studying the layout. The lakeside was U-shaped, with rooms facing both the street and the water. I positioned myself across the street at a small cafe with outdoor seating that had a clear view of most of the hotel windows. I ordered a coffee and waited, watching the entrance while appearing to work on my laptop. 20 minutes later, he appeared. Jason Cooper, Melissa's boss, the man whose name had been appearing on our home caller ID with increasing frequency over the past few months. The man whose cologne I had smelled on my wife's neck the night before. He crossed the lobby with the easy confidence of someone who believed themselves untouchable. Expensive suit, perfect haircut, wedding ring glinting on his left hand. I knew his wife, Rebecca. We'd had dinner with them twice. She collected vintage teacups and laughed too loudly at her own jokes. They had twin daughters in college. I watched him enter the hotel, knowing exactly where he was going. There was no need to find out the room number or risk exposure by lurking in hallways. I could confirm what I needed from right where I sat. Sure enough, 15 minutes later, I saw them. Fourth floor, corner room with balcony facing the lake. They didn't bother to fully close the curtains, another sign of their arrogance, their certainty that no one would be watching. I could see Melissa's silhouette moving about the room, then Jason's joining hers. I took out my phone and used the camera's zoom to capture several clear photos. Not explicit enough to be vulgar, but damning nonetheless. Them embracing by the window, her distinctive emerald blouse falling to the floor, his hand on the small of her back, guiding her toward the bed. It was enough. More than enough. I left money for my coffee and walked away, each step heavy with the weight of certainty. I didn't confront Melissa when she returned home 3 hours later, flushed and claiming she'd had such a great run. You should have seen the sunrise over the lake. I didn't mention that I knew she'd seen that sunrise through the windows of room 412 at the Lakeside Hotel, with her boss's hands on her body instead of mine. "How was your run?" I asked casually, not looking up from my laptop. She hesitated for just a fraction of a second. "Good," cleared my head. I nodded, still not meeting her eyes. "There's coffee." "Thanks," she said, pouring herself a cup. "What time is your thing with Ethan tonight?" "My brother's name is Daniel. Ethan is my cousin who lives in Seattle. We haven't spoken in 2 years." "7," I replied, as if everything was normal, as if I didn't know. "Probably won't be home until late." "That's fine," she said quickly. Too quickly. "I have a lot of work to catch up on anyway. Might just stay at the office." "Sure," I said, finally looking up at her. Our eyes met, and for a moment I thought I saw something, guilt, perhaps, or fear that I might know. But then it was gone, replaced by the careful mask she'd been wearing for weeks now. "I should get going," she said, glancing at her watch. The same gesture I'd photographed at the hotel. "Big presentation this morning." "Good luck," I said, and I meant it. Not because I wished her success, but because I was already detaching myself from her, from us, from the life we'd built together. In that moment, I realized I'd already begun to let her go. After she left, I sat in our quiet kitchen for a long time, staring at the wedding photo we kept on the refrigerator. Us on a beach in Hawaii, sunburned and laughing, her white dress billowing in the wind, my arms wrapped around her waist. We looked happy. Maybe we were then. I called in sick to work, the first time I'd done so in 3 years. Then I called my brother Daniel. "I need to talk to you," I said when he answered. "In person, and I need you not to ask questions right now." Daniel, to his credit, didn't hesitate. "My place, 1 hour." My brother lives in a small apartment across town, the kind of bachelor pad that perpetually smells like pizza and gym socks. When I arrived, he took one look at my face and handed me a beer without saying a word. "Melissa's cheating on me," I said, after taking a long swallow. The words felt strange in my mouth, foreign and bitter. Daniel didn't look surprised. That was its own kind of pain. "You knew?" I asked. He sighed, dropping onto the couch beside me. "I suspected, the way she's been acting at family dinners, the way she barely looks at you anymore." I didn't want to say anything without proof. "I have proof," I said, pulling out my phone and showing him the pictures I'd taken. I told him everything, the cologne, the fake running trip, Jason Cooper. "What are you going to do?" Daniel asked when I finished. "Confront her?" I shook my head. "No, that's what she'd expect. A big blow-up, tears, accusations. It would almost be a relief for her, I think." to have it all out in the open. So what then? I took another drink of my beer, the plan forming in my mind as I spoke. I'm going to give her exactly what she's been wanting. Distance. Space. I'm going to become the ghost she's been treating me like. Daniel looked skeptical. You're just going to, what, ignore her? Not exactly, I said. I'm going to mirror her. Everything she's done to me, I'm going to do to her. The emotional withdrawal, the excuses, the absence, but I'm not going to give her the satisfaction of knowing why. She didn't give me that courtesy. That sounds cold, Daniel said carefully. I laughed, a hollow sound that surprised even me. Is it any colder than what she's doing? Lying to my face every day? Planning to use me as her alibi while she sleeps with her boss tonight? Daniel was quiet for a moment. No, he finally said. I guess it's not. That night I didn't go home. I texted Melissa at 6:30 p.m. Running late with Ethan, don't wait up. She replied almost instantly. No problem, swamped at work anyway. Might crash at Jen's if it gets too late. Jen is her friend who lives downtown. I knew Melissa wouldn't be at Jen's apartment that night. She'd be in room 412 at the Lakeside Hotel or somewhere similar with Jason Cooper. I stayed at Daniel's that night, sleeping on his lumpy couch, staring at the ceiling until the early hours of the morning. Not because I was heartbroken, though I was, but because I was planning, calculating, preparing for what came next. The next morning I went home early, arriving just as Melissa was getting out of the shower. She startled when she saw me sitting at the kitchen table. You scared me, she said, clutching her towel tighter. I didn't hear you come in. Sorry, I replied, not sounding sorry at all. How was work? Exhausting, she said, the lie coming easily to her now. Ended up at Jen's around midnight. I nodded, taking a sip of my coffee. I canceled our dinner plans with the Wilsons on Saturday. The Wilsons were our closest friends as a couple, monthly dinner dates for years. Melissa looked genuinely surprised. Why with him? She asked. We've had that planned for weeks. I shrugged. Didn't feel like it anymore. Ryan, what's going on with you? She asked, and I could hear the first note of concern in her voice. Not concern for our marriage or for my feelings, but concern that I might be disrupting the careful balance she'd created, the one that allowed her to have her affair while keeping her comfortable life with me intact. Nothing, I said, standing up. I'm just tired. Work has been crazy. I parroted her own excuse back to her, watching as recognition flickered in her eyes. Over the next 2 weeks, I implemented my plan with methodical precision. I canceled small things that were important to Shira, the reservation at her favorite restaurant for our monthly date night, the couple's massage she'd been looking forward to, the weekend trip to her parents' lake house. I started working late, sometimes not coming home until she was already asleep. I stopped asking about her day. I stopped touching her entirely. No goodbye kisses, no hand on the small of her back as we passed in the hallway, no reaching for her in bed at night. I became the husband she had turned me into, and it was driving her crazy. Are you mad at me? She finally asked one night, cornering me in our bedroom as I changed for bed. I looked at her with the same blank expression she'd been giving me for months. No, why would I be mad? You've been acting strange, distant. Have I, Mom? I asked mildly. I hadn't noticed. She frowned, crossing her arms over her chest. Ryan, if something's bothering you, just say it. Don't play games. The irony of her statement was almost enough to make me break character, to laugh in her face or scream or throw something against the wall. But I didn't. I stayed calm, collected. Nothing's bothering me, I said. I'm just focused on other things right now. What other things? She demanded, a hint of panic creeping into her voice. This was new territory for her, me being the emotionally unavailable one, her having to chase my attention. I shrugged. Work, life, the future. Our future, she pressed, taking a step toward me. I deliberately sidestepped her, moving toward the bathroom. I'm going to take a shower. I closed the door before she could respond, leaning against it and listening to her frustrated sigh on the other side. This wasn't about revenge, not really. It was about reclaiming my dignity, my agency in a situation where she'd left me powerless. Meanwhile, I was making moves she knew nothing about. I'd been approached by a competing firm 6 months earlier, but had turned them down out of loyalty to my current company. I reached out to my contact there, letting them know I was now interested if the offer still stood. It did, with a significant salary increase and the chance to lead my own team. I accepted, setting a start date for 1 month later. When it came to my career, I had always played it safe, choosing stability over risk. Now, with my personal life in shambles, I found myself willing to take chances I'd previously avoided. I also consulted discreetly with a divorce attorney, wanting to understand my options before making any irreversible decisions. The attorney, a sharp-eyed woman named Catherine Mercer, reviewed our finances and advised me on how to protect myself. Document everything, she told me, and start separating your finances now, subtly, not hiding assets. That's illegal and unethical, but ensuring you have your own accounts, your own credit, your own safety net. I took her advice, opening a new account at a different bank and redirecting a portion of my paycheck there. I made digital copies of all our important financial documents and stored them securely in the cloud. I started cataloging our assets, determining what was jointly owned versus individually acquired. The affair continued, of course. Twice more that week, she came home smelling of his cologne, her eyes avoiding mine, as she made excuses about working late or having drinks with colleagues. I said nothing, did nothing. I simply observed, cataloging each lie, each betrayal, building my case in silence. One evening, I ran into Carla from HR in the elevator at work. She had always been friendly with me, and we occasionally chatted about office politics or weekend plans. This time, she looked uncomfortable, avoiding my eyes as we rode down together. "Everything okay, Carla?" I asked. She hesitated, then turned to me with concern in her eyes. "Ryan, I don't know if I should say anything, but there's been talk about Melissa and Jason Cooper." My stomach tightened, but I kept my expression neutral. "What kind of talk?" "They've been seen together outside of work. A lot. And Jason has a history with female employees." She looked genuinely distressed. "I just thought you should know, because I respect you and because it's happened before. The last woman who got involved with him ended up transferring to another branch when things went south." I nodded slowly, processing this new information. "Thank you for telling me, Carla. I appreciate it." "You're a good guy, Ryan," she said as the elevator doors opened. "You deserve better." That brief conversation confirmed what I had already suspected. Jason's affair with Melissa wasn't his first, and everyone knew it except the spouses. I was the last to know, the punchline to a joke the entire office had been sharing behind my back. The humiliation burned in my chest, but I channeled it into resolve. This wasn't just about Melissa's betrayal anymore. It was about reclaiming my self-respect. On Friday, while Melissa was at work, I went through our finances. We had separate accounts as well as a joint one for household expenses. I transferred my portion of next month's bills into the joint account and then removed my name from it entirely. I rerouted my direct deposit to my personal account. Small, practical steps towards separation. That night, as Melissa slept beside me or pretended to sleep, I could no longer tell the difference. I slipped the hotel photograph into her purse, tucked between her wallet and her day planner where she would certainly find it, but not immediately. I wanted the discovery to come when she was alone, when I wasn't there to witness her reaction. The next morning, I told her I was going fishing with Daniel for the day, another lie to mirror hers. In reality, I went to a small apartment I'd rented the day before, paid for in cash 3 towns over. I spent the day setting up my new life, buying basic furniture, transferring utilities into my name, arranging for my mail to be forwarded to a P.O. box. When I returned home that evening, Melissa was waiting for me, her face pale, her eyes red-rimmed. The photograph was clutched in her hand. "What is this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I looked at the photograph as if seeing it for the first time. "It looks like you standing in a hotel doorway." "Why do you have this?" she demanded, her voice rising. "Have you been following me?" I didn't answer her question. Instead, I asked my own. "How long have you been sleeping with Jason Cooper?" The color drained from her face. For a moment, she looked like she might deny it, might try to spin some elaborate explanation for why she was at a hotel at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday. But then her shoulders sagged, the fight going out of her. It's not what you think, she said weakly. I laughed, the sound harsh in our quiet living room. It's exactly what I think, Melissa. You've been having an affair with your married boss for, what, months now, while lying to my face every day, while flinching away from my touch as if I disgusted you, while using me as your alibi so you could meet him at hotels. Ryan, please, she said, tears spilling down her cheeks now. We can work through this. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything. If it didn't mean anything, why did you do it? I asked, genuinely curious. Was it worth it? Throwing away 7 years of marriage for someone who's never going to leave his wife for you? Her head snapped up. How do you know he won't leave Rebecca? And there it was, the truth she hadn't meant to reveal. She wasn't sorry about the affair. She was sorry she'd been caught before her plan, whatever it was, could come to fruition. He won't, I said with certainty. Men like Jason don't leave their wives for their subordinates. It's bad for their image. And even if he did, he'd cheat on you too. He has a history, Melissa. You're not the first. Did you really not know that? She blinked, confusion crossing her features. What are you talking about? Ask around your office. Ask Carla and Jason Cooper has a pattern. You're just the latest in a long line of women he's seduced and discarded. Congratulations on making the team. My words hit her like a physical blow. She staggered backward, sinking onto the couch. You're lying, she whispered, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. Why would I lie? I asked. What would I gain from that? You're the one who's been lying, Melissa, for months. To me, to yourself, probably to him too. Does Rebecca know yet? Or are you both still pretending this is just between the two of you? Melissa's face crumpled, her carefully constructed narrative falling apart around her. I love him, she said, her voice small and broken. It was the final blow, worse than finding the affair, worse than the lies and the betrayal. She loved him, while married to me. Then I hope you'll be very happy together, I said, my voice remarkably steady despite the earthquake happening inside me. But you'll be building that happiness without me. I turned and walked toward the door, unable to stay in that house with her for another minute. Where are you going? She called after me, panic in her voice. Out, I replied, using the same vague, dismissive tone she'd been using with me for months. Don't wait up. I spent that night in my new apartment, lying on a mattress on the floor, staring at the unfamiliar ceiling. I should have felt devastated, broken. Instead, I felt oddly at peace. The worst had happened, and I had survived it. In the morning, I called our mutual friend Steve, asking him to meet me for coffee. Steve has known both of us since college. He was the one who introduced us at a Halloween party 10 years ago. Melissa's been cheating on me with her boss, I told him bluntly after we'd sat down with our drinks. I found out a few weeks ago we're getting divorced. Steve's jaw dropped. Holy shit, Ryan, I'm so sorry. Are you sure? Maybe there's been some misunderstanding. I showed him the hotel photograph. No misunderstanding. She admitted it last night. Steve shook his head, looking genuinely stunned. I never would have thought. Melissa, of all people, what are you going to do? I've already done it, I said. I've moved out. I've separated our finances. I'll be filing for divorce next week. Just like that? Steve asked. No fighting for the relationship? I sighed, trying to find the words to explain my decision. There's nothing left to fight for, Steve. The woman I married doesn't exist anymore. Maybe she never did. Steve was quiet for a moment, digesting this. What can I do? He finally asked. How can I help? I need you to do something for me, I said, and it's going to sound strange. I explained what I wanted, for Steve to post anonymously about the affair on a local community forum. Not with names, not with the photograph, nothing that could be traced back to me or to Melissa directly. Just enough details that people in our social circle would connect the dots. Why? Steve asked, clearly uncomfortable with the idea. Why not just let it go? Because Melissa is already spinning a narrative, I explained. She called Jen last night after I left. Told her I'd been emotionally abusive, that I'd been tracking her movements, that she was afraid of me. Jen called Daniel to check on me, and he told me everything Melissa said. She's trying to control the story, to make herself the victim. I don't want revenge, Steve. I just want the truth to be known. Steve hesitated, then nodded slowly. Okay, I'll do it, but nothing that could hurt her career or anything like that. Just the facts, I agreed. That's all I want. The post went up that afternoon. By evening, my phone was buzzing with messages from friends and acquaintances, some expressing sympathy, others asking for confirmation, a few expressing shock that I would air dirty laundry so publicly. I didn't respond to any of them. The truth was out there now. That was enough. Melissa called 17 times that night. I didn't answer. She left voicemails ranging from tearful apologies to furious accusations to desperate pleas for me to come home so we could talk. I listened to each one, then deleted them all. At work the next day, I requested a meeting with my boss, explaining that I would be leaving the company at the end of the month for a new opportunity. I also mentioned Pamela that I would prefer not to attend the office holiday party as my wife and I were separating, and it would be awkward given her relationship with Jason Cooper. My boss's eyes widened. Jason Cooper, are you saying? I nodded once, not elaborating further. I didn't need to. The implication was clear. By the end of the day, the office grapevine was buzzing. 2 people stopped by my desk to express their sympathy. 3 more sent supportive emails. One older colleague who had been with the company for decades invited me to lunch, where he revealed that Jason had been involved in at least 4 workplace affairs that he knew of, 2 of which had ended in significant settlements to avoid harassment lawsuits. The company protects him because he brings in big accounts, my colleague explained. But this time he may have gone too far. Sleeping with a married subordinate is different from his usual flings with single women. There could be liability issues the company won't want to deal with. I nodded, taking in this information without commenting. I hadn't intended to create professional consequences for either Melissa or Jason, but I wasn't going to shield them from the natural results of their choices either. On Monday, I met with a divorce attorney, a calm, efficient woman named Catherine, who came highly recommended by a colleague. I laid out the situation, explaining that I wanted a clean, fair split with minimal drama. No children, reasonable assets, short marriage duration, Catherine mused, making notes. We should be able to handle this without too much complication. Unless she contests? She might, I admitted. She's not taking this well. Catherine's eyes met mine over her glasses. They rarely do when they're the ones at fault, but infidelity is pretty straightforward in terms of fault. If she's smart, she'll accept a reasonable settlement and move on. The divorce papers were delivered to Melissa at her office 2 days later. A petty move, perhaps, but I wanted Jason Cooper to know that his actions had consequences. By that evening, the story had spread through our entire social circle. The sympathetic glances Melissa had been receiving, poor Melissa, married to controlling, paranoid Ryan, had turned to whispers behind her back. The narrative she tried to create had collapsed under the weight of the truth. She showed up at Daniel's apartment that night, clearly having figured out where I might be staying. Daniel called me as she was pounding on his door, demanding to speak to me. Don't let her in, I told him. Don't engage at all. She's causing a scene, Daniel said, sounding stressed. The neighbors are going to call the cops. Let them, I replied. This isn't your problem to solve. Eventually, Melissa left, but not before slipping a letter under Daniel's door. He read it to me over the phone, a 3-page handwritten ramble, alternating between apologies, justifications, and accusations. She claimed Jason had manipulated her, that she had been planning to end the affair, that she still loved me more than anything. She begged me to come home, to give her another chance, to not throw away everything we'd built together. What should I do with it? Daniel asked when he finished reading. Throw it away, I said. It doesn't change anything. 2 days later, I received a surprise visitor at my new workplace, Rebecca Cooper, Jason's wife. She asked if we could speak privately, so I took her to a nearby coffee shop. I received some interesting photographs in the mail, she said without preamble, sliding a manila envelope across the table. Inside were more explicit photos of Jason and Melissa together, ones I hadn't taken and hadn't sent. These didn't come from me, I said immediately. Rebecca waved a dismissive hand. I know. They came from Jason's previous girlfriend, Alicia Martinez. She worked in accounting until last year. Apparently, she's been keeping tabs on him, waiting for the right moment to expose him. Your divorce filing gave her the perfect opportunity. I was stunned. I'm sorry. Don't be, Rebecca said, a steely glint in her eye. I've known about Jason's activities for years. I chose to look the other way because it was easier than confronting the truth. But this is different. Melissa isn't some naive intern or new hire. She's a married woman who knowingly entered into an affair with my husband. Neither of them deserves protection. What are you going to do, Baez? I asked. I've already done it, Rebecca replied. I've filed for divorce, frozen our joint accounts, and sent copies of these photos to the company's board of directors, along with a detailed history of Jason's pattern of pursuing subordinates. They can either deal with him, or they can deal with a very public, very messy lawsuit from me. I studied her face, seeing not a victim but a formidable opponent who had been pushed too far. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know that you are not alone in this, she said. And because I want you to know that neither of them is going to win. Not this time. The next month passed in a blur of legal meetings, property divisions, and carefully orchestrated avoidance of Melissa. She tried everything to get me to speak to her directly, showing up at my workplace, sending friends as emissaries, even calling my parents to plead her case. I remained resolute in my silence. There was nothing left to say. Jason Cooper, as both Rebecca and I had predicted, did not leave his wife for Melissa. In fact, according to office gossip relayed to me by a sympathetic former coworker, he had been placed on administrative leave pending an investigation into his workplace conduct. 3 other women had come forward with complaints once Rebecca's evidence reached the board. The company was in damage control mode, and Jason and Melissa were both collateral damage. 6 weeks after I discovered the affair, our divorce was finalized. The settlement was fair. We each kept our own retirement accounts and personal possessions, sold the house and split the proceeds, divided our joint savings. No alimony, no ongoing entanglements. A clean break. I signed the papers without emotion, watching as Melissa did the same, tears streaming down her face. It was the first time I'd seen her in person since the night I'd walked out. She looked smaller somehow, diminished. Is this really what you want? She asked as we left the attorney's office, standing too close to me in the parking lot. To end things like this? Without even trying? I looked at her for a long moment. This isn't what I wanted, Melissa. I wanted our marriage to work. I wanted you to be the person I thought you were, but we don't always get what we want. I still love you, she whispered, reaching for my hand. I stepped back, maintaining the distance between us. No, you don't. You love the life we had, the stability, the comfort. But you didn't love me enough to be faithful or honest, and I don't love you enough anymore to forgive that. So that's it? She asked, a hint of the old Melissa, sharp, challenging, breaking through her tears. 7 years and you can just walk away without looking back? I shook my head. I've done nothing but look back for the past 6 weeks, Melissa. All I've seen is how blind I was, how willing to ignore the signs because I didn't want to face the truth. I'm done looking back now. I'm moving forward. Without me, she said, her voice hollow. Yes, I agreed. Without you. I walked to my car without turning around, even as I heard her call my name one last time. Some endings don't get neat resolutions or cathartic final conversations. Some endings are just endings. My new job turned out to be exactly what I needed. Challenging work, supportive colleagues, and a fresh start where no one knew me as the guy whose wife cheated on him with her boss. I threw myself into projects, working long hours not to avoid going home to an empty apartment, but because I genuinely enjoyed what I was doing. For the first time in years, I felt like I was building something for myself, not for us. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, I ran into Rebecca Cooper at a coffee shop downtown. She recognized me immediately, gesturing for me to join her at her table. I hesitated, then sat down across from her. Ryan Taylor, she said, studying my face. You look better than the last time I saw you. The last time she'd seen me had been at the final mediation session for our respective divorces, where we had briefly acknowledged each other with grim nods of solidarity. How are you, Rebecca? I asked, genuinely curious. She had always seemed like a kind woman trapped in a marriage to a man who didn't deserve her. Free, she said bluntly, raising her left hand to show her bare ring finger, and surprisingly okay with it. The girls are thriving at college. Ah, Elmo, the house sold for a good price and I got half of everything, including his precious car collection. She smiled, a fierce, triumphant expression that transformed her face. Turns out Jason had been having affairs for years. Yours wasn't the first wife he'd helped himself to. I winced at her phrasing. Melissa wasn't blameless. Rebecca waved a dismissive hand. Of course not. It takes two to tango, as they say. But Jason, he had a system, young, ambitious women who reported directly to him. He'd mentor them, promote them, make them feel special. Then, when they were suitably grateful and in awe of him, he'd make his move. She took a sip of her coffee. Did you know he's been asked to leave the company? Too many complaints, too much liability. I hadn't known that. I'd cut myself off from any news about Jason Cooper or Melissa months ago. What about Melissa? I found myself asking, despite my better judgment. Rebecca's expression softened slightly. She left too, moved to Chicago, I heard. Fresh start. I nodded, feeling a strange mix of emotions, relief that she was gone, sadness for what might have been, a lingering anger that was finally beginning to fade. For what it's worth, Rebecca said, reaching across the table to touch my hand briefly, I think you handled it all with remarkable dignity. Most men would have gone scorched earth. I considered it, I admitted, but that's not who I am, or who I want to be. Rebecca smiled, a genuine warmth in her eyes. Well, whoever you are, Ryan Taylor, I think you're going to be just fine. As I walked home from the coffee shop, I realized she was right. I was going to be fine. Better than fine, actually. The pain hadn't disappeared entirely. I doubted it ever would, but it had transformed into something manageable, something I could carry without being crushed by it. My new position came with an unexpected opportunity, leading a project that required frequent collaboration with a different department. That's how I met Laura, a product designer with a sharp mind and an even sharper sense of humor. She was nothing like Melissa. She wore mismatched socks on purpose, collected vintage cameras, and had a loud, unrestrained laugh that turned heads in restaurants. We started as colleagues, became friends, and eventually something more. I was cautious at first, the wounds from my marriage still fresh, but Laura was patient, understanding my hesitation without taking it personally. Everyone has baggage, she told me one night as we walked along the river after dinner. The important thing is finding someone who helps you carry it, not someone who adds to the load. 6 months after the divorce, I received a letter from Melissa. It had been forwarded from my P.O. box, though I had no idea how she'd found that address. For a moment, I considered throwing it away unread, but curiosity won out. The letter was brief, just half a page. She wrote that she was settled in Chicago, working at a new firm, seeing a therapist twice a week. She apologized, not with the desperate pleading of her earlier attempts, but with a quiet acknowledgement of the pain she had caused. She didn't ask for forgiveness or reconciliation. She simply wanted me to know that she understood now what she had thrown away, and that she was trying to become someone who wouldn't make the same mistakes again. I folded the letter and put it back in the envelope, not sure how I felt about its contents. There was a time when such an apology would have meant everything to me. Now it was just words on paper from someone who had become a stranger. I didn't write back. There was nothing left to say between us. But I didn't throw the letter away either. I tucked it into a box with other mementos from that chapter of my life, not to revisit regularly, but to acknowledge that it had happened, that it had shaped me in ways both painful and profound. Sometimes, in quiet moments, I still think about Melissa, not with longing or regret, but with a kind of detached curiosity. I wonder if she found what she was looking for in Chicago. I wonder if she learned anything from what happened between us. I wonder if she ever truly loved me at all. But these thoughts come less frequently now, less intensely. They're being replaced by new memories, new hopes, new plans for a future I couldn't have imagined a year ago. Last week I ran into Jen, Melissa's old friend, at the grocery store. She looked uncomfortable when she saw me, shifting her weight from foot to foot as we exchanged awkward pleasantries in the produce section. Have you heard from her? Jen finally asked, unable to contain her curiosity. Yes, I said truthfully. She wrote me a letter. Jen nodded, chewing her lip. She calls me sometimes, late at night usually. She sounds lost. I didn't know what to say to that. I felt a twinge of something, not satisfaction at her unhappiness, but a sense of justice, perhaps. Actions have consequences. Choices have costs. She asks about you, Jen continued, watching my face carefully. If you're seeing anyone, if you ever talk about her, what do you tell her? I asked. The truth, Jen replied, that you seem happy, that you've moved on. I nodded, appreciating her honesty. I have moved on, Jen. I hope she does too. As I walked away, Jen called after me. She regrets it, what she did. She says it was the biggest mistake of her life. I paused, turning back to face her. It probably was, I agreed, but that doesn't change anything. And it doesn't. All the regret in the world can't undo the past. All the apologies can't rebuild broken trust. All the tears can't wash away the choices we make and the pain we cause. Melissa made her choice. I made mine. We both have to live with the consequences. But here's the thing about consequences. They're not always punishments. Sometimes they're opportunities disguised as endings. Sometimes what feels like the worst thing that could happen to you turns out to be exactly what you needed to become the person you were meant to be. The day after running into Jen, I took Laura to dinner at a new restaurant overlooking the city. As we sat across from each other, the soft candlelight catching in her dark hair, I realized something profound. I wasn't carrying the weight of my failed marriage anymore. I wasn't defining myself by Melissa's betrayal or my response to it. I was simply present, enjoying the company of someone who saw me clearly and liked what she saw. What are you thinking about? Laura asked, catching me staring at her. The future, I said honestly, and how sometimes you have to lose what you thought you wanted to find what you actually need. She smiled, reaching across the table to take my hand. That's very philosophical for a Tuesday night. I have my moments, I replied, squeezing her fingers gently. Later that night, as we walked back to my apartment, our apartment now, really, though we hadn't officially moved in together, Laura asked me a question that caught me off guard. Do you ever worry that what happened with Melissa might happen again? With us, I mean. I stopped walking, turning to face her under the glow of a street lamp. I used to, I admitted. For a long time, I thought I'd never trust anyone again, that I'd always be waiting for the other shoe to drop. And now, she pressed, her eyes searching mine. Now I realize that living that way isn't really living at all, I said. I can't control what other people do. I can only control how I respond. And I choose to believe in the possibility of something good, even knowing it might hurt again someday. Laura's smile was soft, understanding. That's very brave. I shook my head. It's not brave, it's necessary. The alternative is to close yourself off completely, and that's no way to live. As we continued walking, hand in hand beneath the stars, I thought about the journey that had brought me here, from the man who heard his wife say, "Don't touch me," and felt his world collapse, to the man who walked away without a word and rebuilt his life from the ashes of what was lost.